Hi everyone, we're back, and we're breaking these up on Saturdays as opposed to watching them one at a time. And so we're gonna. I have to insert this, I think, into the stream. I realized, and so we'll work on that. But this is kind of a new way for us to approach it. We're talking about Unreal Engine, and we got Nick Jeshishin and Rick Markley and many others that are kind of playing with this. So Jesse Schwartz, I know, has been doing a bunch of work in this area. So we're going to have a general discussion. What we're talking about is really Metahuman into Unreal, and then the control of that. So Nick, I'm going to let you go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, you usually start off with the what's new this week question. And what was new this week is the Faceware company basically made their key product is Faceware Studio. And it's an alternative to the Live Link Face tool that's on the iPhones, iOS. Faceware Studio has quite a bit of additional capabilities versus Live Link Face, one of which is it works with any camera or video file, and it will live drive Metahumans. And I think I've actually got this stuff running. So let me see if I can. I'm not going to share screen. I'm just going to stream my screen. And so I've got this set up with. Hopefully, you guys are you seeing 3 faces across my screen?
Yes. Affirmative.
All right. Yeah, so on the left side, this is Faceware Studio. And right now it's just playing back a video file. I shot this with, just a standard Sony mirrorless camera. And this is being analyzed actively live in Faceware Studio. So I could feed this a live video if I wanted to, if I wasn't already tying up all of my video I/O for the Zoom stream. So you could drive a CG character live with this as well. So, instead of being anchored to an iOS device, this could be any video source. It works with head-mounted video sources as well. So in my studio, we have a Faceware headgear system that, holds a really small camera with LED lights a certain distance from the face. And so that all works well. And what's going on here is there's a built-in machine learning system that's tracking important features of the face. So the eyelids are blinking, it's tracking the pupils, it's tracking the eyebrows and flaring of the nose, and of course the shape of the mouth. And it's not being shown to you here, but it's also tracking the movement of the jaw. So all of that data.
And is it, there's no dots? And doesn't Faceware normally use dots?
It does not need dots. You can use dots if you're in a dedicated face tracking scenario where you'd like to get a little bit of extra confidence in the results. But it's working off of image recognition. It's tracking, any information it has, the blemishes and things like that. Now, in this particular scenario, I actually have, it would have been nice if I had some, dulling on me instead of so much specular hits, because the specular hits will play across the skin. So you can absolutely trace out dots. And in fact, with our Faceware hardware kit, every year we kind of have this subscription, and they send us fresh marking pencils, both a dark pencil and a light pencil. So if your talent has dark skin,
Sharpies aren't the right way to go.
Generally, it's just you
They're
can
very clear.
do that. It's just that the talent isn't really generally too happy.
I mean, because they're easy to track. That the sweat doesn't really affect them very much. It's
this is right. Yeah, but yeah, Faceware is pretty cool. They sent us like a couple makeup pencils. A white one for dark complexions and a dark one, and you can actually, if someone has dark eyebrows, the white pencil works really well to help enhance tracking of the eyebrows, for example, and a bunch of towelettes and all kinds of little tools and stuff. So marking like that is certainly doable and encouraged if you want to get as much confidence as possible in it. So this 2-dimensional tracking data is translated into a 3-dimensional face rig. So this is Faceware's standard stand-in for a face. And this gives you kind of a visual look at, like, this is what Faceware sees as the 3D result. So this will, you could see the movement of the eyes and the eyebrows and mouth and lips and jaw and all that sort of thing. And you're kind of just like the live link face. You're getting a kind of a live output of data here. And this is really right here. This panel, the animation tuning, is one of the first big things that makes this another step above live link face, because now if I'm seeing that, one of the eyebrows is tracking too much, it's just moving too much, I could dial down, or if it's not moving enough, I could dial up the influence of that particular track on the CG face. And there's another whole set for motion effects where you can clamp them or offset them or attenuate them and such. So this whole panel actually allows you as a
and if you were recording that. If you're recording a performance, would you record it, play it through here, and just constantly watch it and making adjustments to how it views it, and then export that data out? Is that kind of how you would do it in the studio?
Absolutely, yeah. So if Faceware Studio was all that I had, I would absolutely choose Faceware Studio over Live Link Face because I can play this on a loop and I can trim this down as well. So this is actually a subset. I'm playing an image sequence right now, by the way. So this started out as an MP4 file. I worked with that for a while, and then I ultimately found the segment that I really wanted to work on, and so now I'm just looping through a PNG sequence at this point. So now I can watch this, and if there are things that I don't like, I can tune these up, and I can add additional attenuations and effects, motion effects here. So they could go in right here and adjust. I could select primary control, which is like which aspect of the face, and then what's the effect? Am I going to clamp it? Or am I going to offset it, etc. So absolutely. If those were the tools I had, I would absolutely be leaning into this first. And then the trick is then to ultimately you just record this inside Unreal Engine using the take recorder or sequence recorder. And then you can plot that result onto the Metahuman control rig and then start editing it even further manually inside Unreal Engine.
And one of the advantages of the Metahuman, if I understand correctly, is that you could keep on swapping those characters out because all that mapping is going to map onto whatever Metahuman you bring in. Is that correct?
Exactly. So I could, in my Unreal scene, I could have other Metahumans, and they could all be tuning in to this data. So, so this is constantly streaming live as this loops through. So this is my stream to client. So that's outputting on port 802. And the other nice thing about this, by the way, is that I could have other Unreal Engine instances running on my network, and they could all be tuning in to this. Or I could have multiple copies of this Faceware running with other talent in the room, and each piece of talent could, each actor could be streaming on a different port. And then over here in Unreal Engine, it's just a selection of the character here, and in the character, this is the Faceware Live component that gets added in. And in here, I should be able to, here's configuration. Here's, I'm listening on my local machine, and then here's the port. So I could be tuning into a number of other ports, and then here's the data streaming in from that right now.
Mm-hmm. It's really cool.
So yeah, really, really powerful set of tools.
And how much is that, the Faceware?
So Faceware Studio, I think, is normally in the it's a little over $2,000, but you can get the personal learning edition for free right now. So Faceware basically reached out to a whole pile of YouTube folks that have been streaming information about Unreal Engine virtual production, and so they reached out to me. So one of the codes you can use is Drexel. So I guess I could try and find that right now if I just go to facewaretech.com. You go and open up the menu and go to buy online, and right here is Faceware Studio Personal Learning Edition. Okay, and there's the price. The regular price is $2,300 for the year, and this is not for commercial use, but if you click on buy, add it to your cart, and then in your cart you should have the opportunity to type in the word Drexel. Yeah, right here, code. I've already added Drexel as my code, so that will get that for you for free. So let's see, code, it's not applied, so let's try this, Drexel, apply that. Hopefully that goes down to 0. Oh, I already applied it to a different order. Oh, a different item. There it is already. There, let's remove this. Dink. And how do I refresh this? Hopefully that takes care of it. Yeah, there we go. Subtotal 0. All right, so so anyone can get that, and then you have Faceware Studio for 6 months, and you can experiment with that. Of course, Metahumans and Unreal Engine are all free too.
That's great.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I mean, it's really a powerful tool. I'd say that there are other tools available. Faceware has another solution called Analyzer and Retargeter that I also use in particularly in a post-production pipeline because there's more opportunity to really manipulate this. Right now, the basic process of this, if I pause this for a moment, is that when you've established your video, you calibrate a neutral pose, and that is the really only calibration pose. So by doing this now,
you look so angry.
Basically, I know I'm such an angry guy. This basically essentially tells Faceware that, hey, this is neutral. I'm looking straight ahead. I'm not doing anything with my mouth or eyebrows, and then everything from this point forward is an offset from that neutral pose. With the Analyzer and Retargeter, there's actually opportunities to calibrate other poses as well. So you could do the FACS system, the FACS system, for all the different syllables that you would normally speak with your mouth and such. So, yeah, there you go.
I think we'll definitely keep on coming back to being able to use the phone, but I think that what we ought to do is also, as many people as want to play along between now and next week, I would recommend using that promo code and downloading Faceware. It looks like it works on a lot of different platforms, and we can all play with it. I know I'll be playing with it a lot. Full
disclosure, as far as I know, none of us are getting anything for just passing out those codes. I mean, that's Faceware's thing. There's no... If there's another YouTuber out there doing Unreal Engine stuff that you like better, feel free to go ahead and use whatever code they have, and it's all fine. But I definitely think that those codes are only good until the end of June, so I definitely would recommend getting that sooner rather than later, so you don't forget to take advantage of that.
That's great.
I don't know if anyone else
my brain went away. My brain went away from. To like, what can we do with that in Rwanda? For a lot of the training.
Oh yeah. I mean,
and South Africa, since Hosmuk's here. I mean, the thing here's the thing that's interesting, and I've been trying to move towards motion capture for training for a while in Rwanda. We have a mocap system there, and one of the things that's really interesting is if you build training that way, your number one is it's unlike anything that's been seen in the country. So it's exciting just to watch it. If you have 3D Rwandans, on TV talking about something, people are more likely to watch it just because it doesn't look like anything that is on TV most of the time. But secondly, you've now kind of future-proofed it if you build it right, where if you really build it in the environment and you really have cameras in that environment, eventually you could export it as VR or AR or other things can all be, exported out, because all that geometry that you built in either Unity or Unreal Engine is now just a environment with all of that happening. And I think that is super interesting, to put all this trouble into training and then be able to just have it. Oh, now we want to create an AR experience or a VR experience of it, is kind of compelling. Imagine watching one of those shows of explaining something where you could watch it on your tabletop and go around it or do whatever. Go ahead, Hosmuk.
I shared with my team last week about this whole metahuman concept, and they all digging into it. My problem is that to try and present diversity in the content we create is quite a challenge, both from a language point of view and from a representation point of view. So I'm hoping that with this technology, we can try and bridge that gap so that people the majority who are of color feel more comfortable with a representation. So I'm really intrigued by what you're showing us here, Nick.
one of the things we did in a program, I don't know, is probably because we had a mocap system for a long time ago. And one of the programs that we did was for a organization that wanted to put out training that what had to go to basically, it was basically 8 different cultures, that they had to integrate with. And getting people to do the voiceover are one thing, but reshooting the video over and over again so that it's culturally appropriate was complicated, and so what we were able to do with that is we had the voiceover of it. We had mocap artists that were doing the work, but once we had all that motion capture, and this makes it easier, we put them in a different type of village. We put them in a different type of village or a different location with different look, with different clothing, with different whatever. What we didn't have to do is redo all the video or redo the the people doing it. We could just say, we could just make it culturally appropriate, inside of that process, and the only thing we did, I think the only thing we changed with it, was that, and there wasn't a lot of heavy movement, but one of the things we changed was, male or female voice, but we just had that done as a voiceover and a single capture. But it was in the language that made sense, and we didn't even we used, I think that was built, I don't know if it was built into Motion Builder or it was just moving the mouth. So we didn't even do, like we had some stuff where the eyebrows go up and a little bit of blinking and everything else, but it just listens to the audio and makes the mouth go up and down. So this is much more, but it was a very compelling solution for the problem of being able to get to lots of folks and have them feel like they're being spoken to by, and we were all doing it out of Washington D.C. so it was useful. Anyway, go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, and that Metahumans seems to really have been focused on getting diverse representation.
I think they're more diverse than they are undiverse. So it's
fantastic, really. Yeah, exactly. So there are just so many regional and ethnicities represented in the base set, and I'm sure that's something that they strove for from the very beginning. And so you have complete freedom to create your own custom characters. So this is what the creator tool looks like, and you usually start out by selecting some base face to begin with, and build out from there. So if I take this fellow, or let's start maybe with her, for example, you get an initial set of like a hair groom and a facial features and skin tones, but then you really have complete flexibility to adjust that and blend in any way you like. So if I stop the little animation, we start out with kind of 3, like a palette with there's who I chose initially, and I can put a few other faces in here. And when we blend between different features, I'm just going to grab a number of faces randomly here. We're blending between essentially the skull structure and the musculature and such in the face. So we're not really, if I'm blending between her and this guy, we're not going to grow a beard on this character, but we're going to blend between, say, the features of her lips and then his lips, right? So, and I can choose in between, and as I move around, I could go. Yeah.
And one thing that I found, I'm spending a lot of time in this right now, and one of the things that I have found is that I almost all the time now find the most diverse faces I can find as the 6 inputs. And the reason I do that is because it just gives me more tools. It lets me pull towards a bigger jaw or a smaller jaw or eyes and everything else. But I'm looking for as much diversity as I can pack into it, just because otherwise you just don't have the handles to get to where you're trying to go. I'm trying to take a series of photos and match those photos, with a character that looks roughly like that. And that's been challenging, and the thing that's made it less challenging is to not go, oh, well, that person is this type, so I'm going to get 6 subtle versions of that type. It's more of, I'm going to grab a whole bunch of very different versions, with some that have obvious qualities that are similar to that, and then blend between them, because you can't sculpt or move the geometry to the level that you can with the blend. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, so it's interesting because you could change how things blend just by, swapping out these different characters, right? Because if this face is over here, then I really don't have the opportunity to blend it with this face. So this is the most you can do, right? So there's 6 faces in the outer ring plus the 7th in the center. And so you can always blend between this center face and any of the other 6. But then you can also easily blend between 2 adjacent faces in the outer ring. And so, if we wanted to blend the eyes between these 2, I could select the eyes and blend between those 2 faces, and then I could further blend towards that center face. So, choosing a likeness that's as close a possible match to begin with at the center definitely helps, because you have those features to kind of pull into. And then selecting divergent sets of features depending on what you're going to want to sculpt, because as Alex said, you do have some additional adjustments that you can make outside of the blend, right? So move is the first most dramatic, right? So if we wanted this chin to be pulled out, I can grab that and there's things that could be done with that. And, we can do the same with the nose, pulling out and getting, different features going on. But there's only so much of that you can do. And so, starting out with a good palette to blend between definitely helps. And then finally, there's this sculpt that's a little bit of a more finer adjustments where you can pull things in or out a little bit more, just for those final little bit of nuances. Try to get that shape just right.
Can you show us how do we get from Metahuman? Can you walk us through the steps of getting from Metahuman to Unreal?
Yeah, sure. So all this is happening in the cloud. It's being constantly saved. All changes saved is showing
I'm
up
pretty
here.
sure what it's doing is spinning up an AWS instant. The reason it renders so quick is I think it's spinning up a pretty big AWS instance in the cloud, because it takes about 1 minute and 15 seconds, which is exactly how long it takes to spin up an instance. And so it spins that up, and then it's just sending you a video. It could be Parsec, it could be something else, but it's basically sending you a video out that is from that location. So then but it's all still being built in the cloud. There's nothing going on in your computer, right?
Right. So all of this, all I'm doing is I'm inside Chrome right now, and I'm just viewing the results of what's happening on that server. So in order to get this into Unreal, and you can also get them into Maya, you need to use a tool called Qixel Bridge. And that's this tool right here. So I think it was last year that Epic actually acquired this company called Qixel, which traditionally has focused on 3D scanning photogrammetry of the world and bringing.
And do you have to
those
install
materials.
Qixel Bridge?
You have to install that. It is cross-platform, so it runs on Windows and Mac, so you can install this on either of those platforms. And it's a free tool, completely free, and it gives you complete access to the entire library of 3D models and 3D materials that are in this Megascans library. And with the release of Metahumans, there's now a section here specific to Metahumans. And the nice thing at this is actually you could install Qixel Bridge on your own, on your computer, again for free. And there are already this collection of about 50 or so predefined metahumans that you could just immediately download. You don't have to do anything to configure them. But in addition to that, when I'm using the website, I'm logged in using my Epic Games account. It's the same account you create to download Unreal Engine. So this is all tied to my account. And since I'm logged into that account here in Qixel Bridge, when I select my metahumans, now I'm looking at the ones that I've created. So this new one's the one that I was just working on. I think if I go ahead and close out of my session here, I'll just close that out. Let that go. At some point in a little while, this will refresh with a thumbnail of where I left off with that character, and then I could download it. Clicking the download is the first step because that brings all of the source files onto my computer. So there we go. So there's that that thumbnail image of the character I was just working on. One thing to note is that while all this is free and is really, really powerful, it does take a little bit of time. So if I click download here, what's actually going to happen is all of that parameterization that I just worked on is now going to be processed on a server and actually generate the final geometry, the final physics rules for her hair and clothing, the textures and all of that are going to be generated. And so this clicking the download button is going to trigger the server to generate all of this. And so
is that available to download before or after? Do you need Qixel Bridge installed in Unreal before you try to download any of these?
No. Yeah. So,
so you can just download them. Now it's going to download it to your account.
Yeah, this is actually this is downloading files to my computer.
Oh, got it.
So when I was using the Metahuman creator, effectively what I was doing is manipulating numerical values, the parameters that define what a metahuman looks like, right? So there's a numerical ID for each one of the base humans, right? There's a numerical ID for the different body types. There's a ID for the different clothing types and the different hair types. And then when I was moving, grabbing a control and moving the nose around, that's a control, and it was getting, floating point values, maybe from -1 to +1 or something. All of that was being stored, and there was no actual geometry saved on that server. So that's what's happening right now on the server, is it's generating the geometry that would be used by Unreal Engine or Maya or anything else. And then once that finishes generating, it'll be downloaded as a set of files in my Qixel Bridge library that I can then pass on to other programs from here.
And that'll be your Qixel. But again, I just want to make sure I'm clear. You do need to have Qixel Bridge installed before you start downloading, or you don't?
Absolutely, right. So you can't download your Metahuman files without having Qixel Bridge installed.
And Qixel Bridge is installed on your own. I see. You're opening it in Qixel Bridge. So you're installing Qixel Bridge. You're opening Qixel Bridge. It's seeing those on the other side. Does that make sense?
Exactly.
Got it.
Right. So
and it's all free. It's just a matter of the steps. It's just want to make sure everyone's clear.
Right. So Bridge is you could go to Qixel.com/bridge. And that is where you download for free this tool. And it's just another software tool set owned by Epic. It's part of what they call their Unreal ecosystem. And there's all sorts of value to this anyway, because it's just loaded with photogrammetry models and textures and all. So you have to install this on your computer, and that is effectively the interface between the Metahuman content on the servers, and then ultimately getting that onto your computer.
Got it.
I wanted to mention too that in order to do the automatic import into Unreal, you do have to have the Megascan plugin installed.
Exactly. So, while this is installing, we can go down to this little cogwheel here on the right, and clicking here, we have there's download settings and there's export settings. So the download settings are important to visit depending on the fidelity of the data that you want. So you could change all of these different words. Albedo is basically the diffuse, the color of whatever model you're downloading. Metalness to indicate whether.
And what are the options? Is JPEG or can you do EXR for everything?
EXR, or both. Yeah. So this is basically, if shooting on your camera, your digital SLR, and choosing between RAW and JPEG. EXR is effectively universal RAW, and JPEG is lighter weight, 8-bit, and all that. Mm-hmm. Models, FBX. You definitely choose FBX. Just go with FBX. Just don't even bother with the others. ABC is fine. Alembic is also fine. FBX is a little more marginally more universal than Alembic files, ABCs. And
FBX in a lot of ways, Alembic, and then USDZ is coming, but I don't think it's here yet. But I think that USD is a format that is going to be picking up speed. But FBX is kind of the precursor to USD is a more advanced version of FBX. But FBX has been around now, I think, for 20. over 20 years. I actually remember the conversation when motion builder Cadera, before they were bought by Autodesk, was putting together FBX to figure out some way that they could get motion capture data in and out of different 3D apps. That was
yeah. I mean, that tool right there is where the Filmbox FBX format was created. Yeah. And because that became the tool to use for processing motion capture data, editing it, cleaning it, and implementing it, that Filmbox format became fairly universal because all the mocap systems started supporting Filmbox. And then the digital content tools, Maya and Blender and 3D Max and all the, I guess, Modo and Cinema 4D, they all support this format. So it became fairly standardized. Yeah, USDZ is newer. It was invented by Pixar, and Pixar open sourced it, and definitely Apple is embracing it. Unreal Engine supports import-export of USD as well, Universal Scene Descriptors. But doesn't seem to be implemented in Qixel Bridge at this point.
Yep.
So, So, and one of the things that is important here in the download settings is for metahumans. If you do intend to use your metahuman in something like Maya, for example, you want to make sure you get the source asset. The U asset is an Unreal Engine asset specifically. It's Unreal Engine's native format. And so if you are intending, these rigs and these characters can be exported, I know at least to Maya. I don't know what other software supports the export of the full rig, but you'll need to have this source asset option selected in order to do that.
I think you could probably get FBX into quite a few, and I think FBX will bring the, all the blending with it.
Right, but the question becomes the rig itself.
Is it compatible?
If Bridge will also because Bridge has its own export plugins for most digital content creation tools, right? So if I export to Maya, what ends up happening is Bridge actually launches a plugin in the background. It injects it as Python code into your running instance of Maya. And then Bridge and Maya are in communication over IP protocol within the computer. And it's a live conversation going on between the two tools. And so Qixel Bridge has plugins for other tools. And so you would want to be able to make sure that, it's just a test. I mean, I've used it with Maya, and you can get that rig into Maya. I don't really use the other tools because Maya is what I use. Right. The levels of detail, these LODs are levels of detail, and so they're useful. I mean, LOD 0 is like the highest resolution. That's your hero model with the highest fidelity. And then all of these lower versions, as the number goes up, the level of detail goes down. And this is so that, okay, if this metahuman, if I choose to download this at 8K, and this is like a close-up shot, then I'm going to get all of that 8K data right up in front of the screen. If this character is one of 1,000 or more in a crowd sim, I might go down to LOD 6 and 7. I just need the kind of idea of that person in the crowd. So that's what all that is.
And a lot of these aren't available past LOD 1 or 2 or 0 or 1. I apologize.
Yeah.
Right. It's particular to the hair sims on these. Not all of the hairstyles have been translated to the lower LOD levels. So when we're looking at these different LODs, levels of detail, when you get down to around here, you actually have a piece of sculpted geometry, kind of like a Lego fig hair is all that's going on top. And, in the middle, it might be 2D cards. So it's just like a ribbon with a texture on it to kind of look like strands of hair. LOD 0 and 1 is actually, in the CG world, we call it a hair groom. It's a groom that is actually a particle system that defines the strands of hair, where they're laying, what the physics are for those strands, how they interact with one another. And so that's at LOD 0 and 1. And that would be, in particular, you would see with the longer hairstyles. And they being the folks working on these metahumans, haven't fully translated those more complicated and elaborate grooms into 2D card systems or, what I call Lego fig sculpted hair pieces.
Can you show us, well, number one is if someone can grab onto some of these links, and Tony had a request to make sure they go into Makana. Let's make sure that we get links to the various tools that we're talking about and try to post them into Makana and then get them into Discord. Can you show us what it looks like when we bring these into Unreal from once we've downloaded it?
Yeah, sure. So once it's downloaded, the next thing you'll do is export. So going to that same cog, we go to export settings, and this is where you set your export target. So this is a list of all the software that Qixel Bridge has a native plugin interface for. So, and you can create custom ones, and it just uses WebSockets to communicate. So, Blender's in here, Cinema 4D, and Maya, of course, and of course Unreal Engine. So in this case, I've indicated to Bridge, like I'm using version 4.26 of the Unreal Engine, and this is where it lives. And the default project that I'm working on is my Humans 02. There's a button that you would click here to make sure that that plugin gets all installed and is operational. And then ultimately we finish by going into our Metahuman and clicking export. So if I go into my scene here, so this is my Unreal Engine level. This started out as let me just set this back to what things look like at default. So this is your basic default Unreal Engine level. And after you've clicked export and it does all its work, you'll have this folder in your project called Metahumans. Let me bring up that magnifier again. So inside Metahumans, there's two folders. There's a common folder, and if I were to export more of my Metahumans, there would just be a new folder for each one. So going back to Bridge here, I've got Nico 1 I exported, and obviously I'm not finished with this. I've just messed around for like 10 minutes, and this does not look like me at all. But if I were to export Coda or Hero 1 or whatever, then I would, in my Unreal Engine project, get another folder for each one of those. So in common, this is the base of what all Metahumans are. So there's, a variety of preview, FBX files that are the actual shapes of the bodies. So for example, this is, I'll just take M, medium, NR. So this is the male, M, versus F for female, medium, MED for medium versus tall versus short, overweight is OVW, underweight, and I think normal. So if I were to double click this, what this is the base rigged body. And this is actually kind of handy because it includes the skeletal mesh. The skeleton is in there as well. And that's what drives the motion of this. And so this is readily exportable to other programs. So, I might use this if I want to use Motion Builder, for example, to apply motion capture to this. I would right click, Asset Actions, and migrate and export this model as an FBX. And then, all of the features would ultimately be available, as an FBX file. I'm just going to cancel this process right now. And then I could use that model, which would be the model plus the skeleton rig in Motion Builder to retarget animation data to that. So these are all these kind of underlying components. And in common, we've got the face, we've got the control rig. The control rig has text in it, so there's fonts, etc., hair, all of those kinds of things. And then in the separate folder, this is everything that makes this particular character unique. And so this is ultimately in Unreal Engine what's called an actor. It's what brings everything together. So if I double click on this, we can see what's going on under the hood. This is, basically assembling all of the different components and bringing them together.
And it's doing this for you.
This is done for me. Like I didn't have to create any of this.
Mm-hmm.
This is where it brought in, all the separate components, the clothing and the head and et cetera. All of this stuff is all brought together here, and it exists like this. I haven't done anything to edit this, but these are all the components. And the interesting thing is that, it's built in has the live link to face, right? So if I were to, bring this actor, I can just drag and drop him into my level, and now he's in the level. So with him selected, I could say that I want his face to come in from an iPad. If I had my iPad running right now with the Live Link Face app, it would actually appear in here as an available source.
And it's appearing that over the network. So the iPad could be plugged into Ethernet, for instance, or over Wi-Fi.
Exactly. Yeah, you definitely get better fidelity with a device, an Ethernet jack plugged in that you've got USB power feeding to, because then you're powering your device while you're also getting a hardware. You could have plenty of Ethernet fidelity, and then you just set up Live Link. There's dedicated window here under Windows and Live Link, and this would just show you any device that was running that at this time. And so it's pretty easy to, it's a very plug and play type of thing. I don't have a video I haven't gotten around to putting it on my own channel, and there's a lot of them already. Just search YouTube Unreal Live Link Face and you'll find tons of resources. Since Faceware is not built in, once you've installed that, one step of the process is just to right click this, source and create a child of that. And so that's what I've done here is, right click, create a child. It basically creates a full copy of this, and then I can edit the copy without corrupting in any way, doing anything to the original. So this is exactly what was exported from Bridge. And then this is a copy that I made. And with this one selected, oops, I probably shouldn't have done that. With this one selected over here, one of the things that happens is dragging and dropping this into the scene. This is a copy of that. Is I've added a component for the Faceware Live. It's like once you've got it installed, you just add a component, type Faceware, and there's Faceware Live. And so that goes in there. And then for the face, you just kind of select the an animation blueprint to drive that, and then it works. So I could actually select that now. Here's the Metahuman face, and I will start. There's a few different play modes. For Metahumans, it's kind of nice to use simulate because you still get the editor. You never leave the editor. So simulate mode and then just play. And now he's moving in response to Faceware. Throughout this whole call, Faceware's been running in the background. So he's still running there and doing his little performance. So yeah, that's how that looks. It's pretty straightforward. I do have a video on how to configure the Faceware setup, because there is one other little step that needs to be done. And when you read the instructions for the Faceware installation, there's this folder called Motion Logic that actually contains basically a translation between the raw values that are coming out of, here's the Faceware app, and it's got its own set of raw values that it's transmitting. And so they need to be converted into the Metahuman's native format. And so that's what these translation curves do. All of these basically convert the Faceware data into Metahuman information so that everything works. So yeah.
Bill, I think we have a couple questions.
Okay, people have been moving in while I've been thinking over there. Hasmuk in Cape Town says, my time bandwidth is on management of our nonprofit company and the profit company and the cooking shows, medical events. I want my team to dive in and deliver metahumans in our content. Can they learn what they need to know and skills simply from Nick's office hours sessions?
I think if they ask questions, I think that what I would say is that the mixture of watching YouTube videos and what's up there, and then the main thing that we're providing right now, and I would highly recommend people using it, is go out and work in it, which I'll be doing next week. and then coming here and asking questions. The reason I had more questions for Nick today is because I spent this week playing with it. So the best way to come up with the questions is to dig in. So my challenge, I know Tony was pointing out that I've now started to give you guys homework. The homework I won't call it homework, I'll just call it a challenge, an opportunity to learn, is to try to get a metahuman into Unreal by next week. So that's so just, try to create a metahuman of whatever you want and get it into Unreal. The extra credit would be try to get Live Link to work or Faceware to work.
Yeah.
Get one of those working. We're going to talk about both of those next week. So the main thing is that the challenge will be for you to go ahead and try to do that while you're working on it. Here is the pro tip. This is the thing that everyone should listen to right now. While you're doing it, not later, not some other time, open up notes or grab a notepad or do whatever. As the questions come up, write them down. You will forget in minutes. In minutes, it will fade away. And so write down those questions as you do it. By the time Nick comes, you've either answered those questions by Googling or watching some YouTube video, or they still exist and you bring them in on Saturday and ask them to Nick. And some of them might be easy and fast, and we'll just say, no, hit this button. And some of them might open up a conversation. So, but the goal is if 10 or 15 or 20 people here go through that, we'll have tons of questions. We won't have enough time to answer them all. But definitely try to do it. All of the stuff is free.
And I have to apologize in advance. My original plan when all of this came out would be that I would be making videos to prep ahead of all of this. But I start the Unreal Virtual Production Fellowship this week. Yeah. So I'm about to turn, other than coming here for this 1 hour on Saturdays.
If the good news is if we stump Nick, he'll have the answer next week because he gets to talk to people.
I get to talk to people that have the answer. Yeah,
that have the answer.
That'll
So
be fun.
we have an incredible opportunity over the next 2 months or 3 months to pick Unreal's brain almost directly.
It's about 6 weeks. It's about 6 weeks. I have orientation this week, and then it's 5 weeks of Crucible production
if
time.
Either Nick will understand it or he'll know the next week what the answer was.
Yeah. It's going to be at least it'll be. I don't think I'll be producing much in the way of YouTube videos during this. But once I clear that and all, then I do hope to translate a lot of that into material that'll be readily available. Looks like Hasmo's hand's still up.
I've been really impressed by Ken Jordan's facial muscle exercise throughout this event. And so he has a bit more time, I guess.
Well, that's built into Metahuman, right, Ken? So far?
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
Those are. It's the key for me following on from this is getting it out from Metahumans into Unreal. She'll be doing that homework.
So I just wanted to figure out. I obviously personally I don't have the bandwidth, so I want to retrofit my team into what Nikki's doing, and they can catch up on the last 2-3 weeks. I can put them in a room and say, okay, guys.
And they could probably start with just this week. I mean, this week is that is enough to get them off the ground between Metahuman, export, whatever. And I would just follow along. And for those watching, this is a key opportunity. You're not going to find this probably almost anywhere for free. You're not going to find this anywhere else in the world. So you have an incredible opportunity to learn a lot in the next 6 weeks.
I would say that what we covered today, and actually it's brilliant that this is its own isolated YouTube video this time. So if we were to
that's why we're doing it actually.
Okay. If we put all of these links in that description in YouTube, anyone that checks this video out will see the overarching pipeline. And if you're first starting, I would absolutely suggest, play around with Metahuman Creator, but make sure you install Qixel Bridge. Make sure you have the latest version of Unreal Engine installed, and just, make a person. Doesn't have to look like anybody. Just for fun, get it into Bridge, get it into Unreal, and just see it. And then ask questions. If you stumbled, ask questions. If you're there and you're like, well, now what do I do? Bring those questions. Over these next several weeks would be great. Because we didn't even get into the rig yet.
Tony
Next
Mobley
question.
has a couple here. The first one, to do a quality job of creating metahumans, what again is the basic hardware? I know the M1 Mac Mini has its limitations. And he also wanted to know in the second one, does Chrome and Firefox work equally as well?
I haven't tried it with Firefox, but I expect that they all work equally as well. I mean, either it's going to work or it's not really, but everything you're seeing on Metahuman Creator is running on a server in the cloud. So as long as you have a modern browser that can stream those results, you should be fine.
Yeah, it's not using your processor at all. Like, it's just other than rendering the video. It's like watching a video over the web, because it's all the work is being done in the cloud.
But when it comes to your computer then using metahumans, what's interesting is that the metahuman system is actually designed to be completely scalable. So it's designed that you could actually build an Android or an iOS app that uses metahumans, and you would just simply dial back that performance. You would use less detailed level, LODs, level of detail, avoid making a metahuman, like if you see the exclamation point saying, hey, this metahuman has features that only work at LOD 0 and 1, and you have a lower powered machine, avoid that feature. Just go with bald, or and that, the beards and the mustaches and all these kinds of things are where you start to use particle system groom hair. That's going to start taxing your CPU, and the level of detail in order to render that is really going to tax your GPU. So if you have a lower powered computer, another thing that Bridge allows you to do is select the resolution. That you could download an 8K resolution. You can download, so 8,000, level of face detail. Then there's a 2K and there's a 1K. So you could just download the lower resolution version for a lower powered machine. So just pretend, if your computer was, current within the last 5 years, it's just fine. The computer that I'm using right now to run the Zoom meeting and show you everything is a at least 6-year-old computer, and it has a GTX 2016, era, year 2016 era GPU board in it. So, if that can do it, then yeah, you probably can do it.
Next question.
Charles Klein, New York City, says, I was able to download Hannah from Qixel Bridge, but it errors when I select export. Any ideas?
So number one is that the destination that you wish to export it to has to be open and running. So that means if you have created I always recommend, if you're experimenting for the first time, create a new project in Unreal Engine to receive that, so you don't have any other complications going on. Then in that new project, that new project needs to be open in Unreal Editor. And then in Bridge, you need to make sure that you go into your export options and designate, okay, which version of Unreal Engine are you using? Where is it located? Where's that plugins folder? And then where is the project folder for the project that you have open that you want it to go into? So all of those things have to be in place. And then, click to export, and then fingers crossed, it should work. If not, then I guess we'll have to get a more detailed, screen share maybe sometime.
Yep. Next question.
And the last one in the queue for today right now, Gordon Lake in Los Angeles says, what's an example of a possible live television use case for Metahuman?
Political satire.
Oh yeah,
that'd be so much fun. Sorry, there's some cartoon right now that that's on Fox that isn't actually that funny, but it's called, I don't know, Get Real or Real something or other, and that'd be an example of one that if the writers were a little better, it would be pretty funny. But that's all with hand puppets. You could do. I was watching it, and the hand puppets are horrible. I think that part of the reason I don't think it's that funny is just the hand puppets aren't very good. You could do so much more with Metahuman in that area. So I think that it would be a lot of fun to if you look at that as an example. But other things, simulations of history. You could right now you can't change you could give more clothes to different clothes to folks and put them into those things. Any other ideas?
Couldn't you do a better version of Jeff Peterson on what they used to be on Craig Ferguson's late night show? It's basically just a skeleton. And you should be able to rig that, right? Pretty easily.
There's no skeleton though. Right now, the funny thing is, I immediately when I started playing with metahumans, I was like, I really wish they'd built a cartoon version of this, like that you could have like that was like a caricature of all of those things, and you could just make the head really big, and you could do a whole bunch of other things, and it doesn't exist. It's just really realistic humans.
Well, it's Character Creator from Reillusion. You can get really crazy with that. Yeah, there's even a cartoon version of it too. Can't remember the name of that. I'll look it up and tell you here.
Yeah,
I would say that on television, if you're specifically asking about live television, I would think that if you were doing a show that was a commentary, that was a tech show, or something that was focusing on virtual production or visual effects or video games or something along those lines, it's a bit of a novelty that the host of that show or the characters of that show, in terms of a live television engagement. Because honestly, if you're talking about live television, chances are you're talking about something that already has a television studio and talent that's working on it. So I don't know that that's the setting that I would deploy these in. I could say that I think one of the most exciting areas is if you really have a creative indie filmmaker that has access to folks that are interested in really diving deep into this. All of a sudden, casting is not something that's becomes an expense. You could have an independent filmmaker create a movie and cast it at will using metahumans. And I think that even if you're a film creator and a writer, that you were team up with someone, this is a great way to pitch. If you have an idea that you're hoping to pitch to one of the streaming services, you could design your characters at will in this. You could bring them into Unreal and even just use it to create look boards and color boards and storyboards for your pitch. And you have full rights to all of that. You can show that to anyone you want. So I think that's useful. When I do the fellowship, I have to produce a short film in that time. And I'm, for myself right now, if I do what I'm thinking about now, there are 3 lead characters and they'll all be metahuman, and I won't be casting anyone. I'll just be doing mocap to drive them, and I'll be using faceware to drive their faces and all. And I've had this story rattling around in my mind for quite a while and never had the opportunity to make it. And the fact that Metahumans came out just a few weeks ago and I'm being thrown into this crucible at the same time is like, this is the moment. I'm just going to make it. And
Rick,
just do it on my own.
Rick, what would you say are the big disadvantages with Character Creator compared to Metahuman? Because I know you're familiar with both.
Well, the Metahuman, you just have realistic results in such a short amount of time. So simple, pre-rigged. They just look amazing. Character Creator, you can get pretty far pretty quickly, but to really dial in a character, it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of control and it takes skill. But there's a lot more animation capabilities with iClone and Character Creator. They have the fact system. They've got all kinds of different rigging. Like I was in an experiment. I was going to show you guys the hand tracking, but it's kind of a little wonky. But maybe I can show you a little bit of some of the tools.
Are you using a Leap motion controller for that?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Let's see if I can port over.
I was going to note that the Real Illusion tool set also has a pretty deep library of wardrobe and accessories and other things that you can tap into. Metahuman is so new right now that there's not much of it, not much in terms of a pre-built assortment of wardrobe, clothing, and such. Even the hairstyles are more limited than what is available in iClone.
Yeah, we've also got things like Headshot, which will let you take a 2D photo and pull it in and create a character. It's a real rough, AI translation of it, but at least it gets you started. Mm-hmm. And then there's things like skin gen, which you can do like blood and tattoos and blemishes and all kinds of things. And people are creating all kinds of different add-on packs. Like someone just created these scars that you can add on, and they'll bleed over time, and all kinds of really cool stuff.
Next question.
Tony Mobley, is Blender enough if funds are limited?
Well, what we're talking about right now doesn't even require Blender or anything else. You like really what you can do with what we're doing, at least for the next 6 months, is Metahuman into Unreal. Now, of course, you could download the models. You wouldn't need to use Blender for anything, but you could use Blender would absolutely be enough to build sets and everything else that you need. So I think that I don't think you need more than that. Yeah. Next question.
JJ McKenna, Santa Venetia, signing up for Qixel, asked a question about subscription for Megascans. Is there a subscription cost?
So there is technically, if you intend to use the assets commercially outside of Unreal Engine. So when you're signing up for the Qixel website, use an Epic account. So start by going to unrealengine.com and create an account there through Epic. And that's a totally free account. You set that up with your email and password. And then that becomes your central hub. You'll need that anyway, really, for Metahumans. Then when you go to the Qixel website, log into that website using that Epic account. So when you log in, you have the choice of giving an email and password or signing up, or you can click a button that says log in with Epic. Use that. So then that's totally free. And all the assets, everything that's in Megascans is free to use inside Unreal Engine for any purpose, commercial or otherwise.
Last question.
Last question is from our friendly Tony Mobley in Nolan, Georgia. And he asks maybe a simple question, but what kind of mouse are best used for creating in Metahumans?
I'm personally just using a standard everyday old Microsoft, actually it's a Dell 3-button roller wheel mouse.
3-button is the thing. I will say that you can't do any of
buttons.
this. You can't even use Metahuman very well without 3 buttons. Like Metahuman is painful on a standard Mac mouse. To answer your question, Tony, is some kind of 3-button mouse is needed. I'm using the Logitech
or a graphics tablet, a Wacom tablet. I mean, the thing is, if you start to get into digital content creation, and that you're new to that, eventually a mouse starts to slow you down and it hurts. You got to do a lot of work. So a lot of folks that really get into this will get a Wacom tablet or similar device that they can do 3-button clicking with the stylus. And it's just a lot more comfortable to use as a pointing device in general. So
I haven't used one, but a 3D mouse might be good too.
I haven't used one either. I keep thinking it'll be a good idea, but I haven't.
But not a roller ball. Not a roller ball. That's hard. Also not good.
All right. Well, thanks, Nick. Thanks, Rick. And thanks to everybody,
thanks
all the
producers.
panelists, and thanks to the producers for asking some great questions. We're going to keep doing this every week, so we'll keep these separate. So now you can go to the videos and grab onto these. Yeah, go ahead, Osmo.
Yeah, well done to Ken and John Preto for showing us.
They're playing along.
Your homework, so that's really impressive. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we expect lots of questions next week as we start to import these in. So and John's looked really good. And I see John's experimenting with lots of hairstyles and looks and stuff like that. That's great.
And Hasbrook, invite the folks that you're working with and have them come in too.
Yeah, we'd love to have them.
I'm going to have to pay them to come, yes. So it may be worthwhile.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Might save them some time, but yeah, at least have them bring the questions. So that'd be great. I'm going to stop the YouTube live. I'm going to take back control. And we're going to leave this webinar open because we're going to do cooking in about 45 minutes. You guys can all still talk among yourself. If you want to come and just hang out, or if you want to come in for the cooking or hang out and tell the cooking or whatever, go ahead and raise your digital hand right now. And you're more than welcome to. Let's see. And we'll have a couple of you come in. This is kind of our version of the post show at the moment of people coming in here. You're more than welcome to stay and just listen or watch, but couple of us I have to go get set up. so anyway, so I'm going to go set up in my kitchen. You'll see me in about a half an hour. And
you're live